All right, let's start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Psalms 83 commentary. And you brothers already know Elder Pastor Harden started the trend with the commentaries. And, he told us we would be doing, some, ourselves. So here it is. I'm going to do one, Lord's will, on Psalms 83rd chapter and try to get through it. Try to make it as concise and brief as possible. This is Psalms 83, a prayer for help when war threatens, and this is from Enduring World. You already know David Guzik, that put these commentaries together. And pretty much what these so-called scholars do is they go and borrow from each other. They put something together, they get information from others and so on and so forth, and then they just pick and choose what they want to put together, you know what I mean? But anyway, I'm not going to read this. You brothers can read that, the introduction kind of, but I'm just going to jump straight to it. It says, the appeal for help, verses 1 through 4, asking God to take action against those set on destroying Israel. Do not keep silent, O Most High. Do not hold your peace, and do not be still, O power. For behold, your enemies make a tumult, and those who hate you lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against your people, and consulted together against your sheltered ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more. And this is a different version of what the King James says, but it says similar, pretty much what the King James is saying. Do not keep silent, O Most High. Asaph sang this prayer in the time of national crisis. Enemies had come against Israel, who were set on their national destruction. If the Most High were to keep silent or hold his peace or be still on behalf of Israel, they would be destroyed. And this is what the nations want. They want us to be destroyed, but he's going to paint the picture that is talking about the Amalekites, which is not. Do not keep silent. It is so difficult sometimes to go on living day by day without one authoritative word, and we are prone to rebuke him for silence, that he is still, that he holds his peace. But the Most High has not kept silence. The word was manifested in him. The silence of eternity was broken. And then he gives another where he got that information from, or this breakdown. Your enemies make a tumult. Asaph asked the Most High to behold this crisis and to regard the enemies of Israel as his own enemies, as those who hated him. Asaph was confident that if the Most High did this, he would act on behalf of Israel. They are not only enemies to us, thy people, but also to thy will and name and glory. Pul. Here goes another name that he uses. Come and let us cut them off from being a nation. This was the crafty counsel of the nations united against Israel. This desire of confederation of nations to destroy Israel did not end in the days of Asaph. His prayer could be sung today as neighboring nations and the whole world community threaten Israel. Now he's trying to say that this is talking about the so-called Jews, the Amalekites, but this is talking about the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, who have suffered the worst violence ever suffered by any people here on this side of the world in the Americas. And then when we read the scriptures prior to the so-called Americas, those scriptures that we read about the persecutions of Israel is talking about the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians who suffered those things back then like they're suffering today. But they're trying to put that upon themselves, which is not. It says, Adam Clark paraphrased the words of verse 4, let us exterminate the whole race, that there may not be a record of them on the face of the earth. Clark. All right, it says, and you could say that you could say that's what they were planning on doing, but technically what it is that the name of Israel be no more in remembrance, meaning that the name of Israel be no more in remembrance among the true Israelites, because the true Israelites would suffer this fate. Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. Psalms 83. I'm going to go to this point here, and then we're going to jump, because we're going to go through it again, Lord's will. Psalms 83 and 4, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation. This is dealing with the other nations coming together and saying that they wanted to cut us off. that the name of Israel may be no more remembered, meaning the name of Israel will not be placed upon us anymore. And this is what it's talking about. You know, it's not talking about exterminated, because the scriptures say that there's no end of all the people. So the name of Israel was taken away from the nation of Israel, the true nation of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, and pretty much put on other people. That's why every other nation out there that claims to be Israel, they have more fame being called those names than the true people of the Most High, which are the Israelites, which are the hidden ones. All right, so let's go back. It says, in all the annals of recorded history, there has never been a people so encircled by foes or as persecuted as the Jews have been. And this is true as far as the true Israelites are concerned. Not those Amalekites that are calling themselves Jews, those fake Jews. They are not the people of the Lord. And those persecutions that you see going on, those are man-made. When you read the book 13 Tribe by Arthur Koestler, there's a excerpt in there where he says that those, you know, because they lived in ghettos out in Europe, but he said that those ghettos were self-imposed. That's what they were, because they had everything, but they would make themselves wear tattered clothes, act like they were poor, so that they can try and fit the curses of the scriptures. But when you look at them, they are the top of everything. They are the top nation. It speaks about Amalek being the top nation. You know? It says, yes, surprisingly, the Jews have prospered in 1836. And you can read the rest of this. This is just dealing with their so-called persecutions of what they went through and how they still were able to survive, or whatever the case is. The only reason why you survive is because you had a purpose to fulfill, prophecies to fulfill. Israel has had its battles, ancient and modern. Christianity has also been opposed, and some have sought to completely cut Christians off. One example was the Roman Emperor Diocletian. You know what? I'm just going to skip through this and just get to the point. Down here, the 5th verse. The Confederation of Nations against Israel. Now check this out. For they have consulted together with one consent. They have a confederacy against you. The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites. Moab and the Hagarites. The Hagrites. Gebal, Ammon, and Amalek. Philistia with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria, who also has joined with them. They have helped the children of Lot, Selah. They form a confederacy against you. Asaph again emphasized that these enemies were not only against Israel, but against, they say Yahweh, but it's Yahweh, Israel's God. And pretty much what you have to understand is that these nations, they still exist today, but they had just been given different names when the Greeks and the Romans and so on and so forth conquered them. This is why today the majority of people on the earth, I say about 85 to 90% of the people on the earth really don't know who they are, because once the Greeks got into power, which are the Edomites, they started to change the names of lands and the names of people. And then once, Esau started getting into certain areas, they started calling themselves by those names. They started putting their names on those lands, and this is why most people today don't know who they are, because there's been a deception at work since the time of the Renaissance. It says they form a confederacy. Enemies often come together to attack the Most High and his people. That very day, Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, for previously they had been at enmity with each other. Luke 23:12. And this is dealing with so he's reading from the New King James Version. This is dealing with two Edomites. That very day, Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, for previously they had been at enmity with each other. Yeah, why did they come together? Because they came together against the true Israelites. Against you, the true antagonists are not Israel and the world, but the Most High and the world. McLaren. What a motley crew they were. A league against Israel is always attractive and gathered whole nations within its bonds. Spurgeon. And like I said, he's trying to equate these things to those Amalekites today in the land of Israel. This does not apply to them. This applies to the true Israelites. All right, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. Let them come from the east and west, south and north, and close round Israel. The Most High alone is mightier than they. McLaren. The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites. The psalmist listed 10 nations or people that were part of the Confederacy against Israel and her God. It seems the children of Lot, specifically Moab and Ammon, led this attack, and the other 8 nations helped them. And from what I read so far, he never even speaks on Edom. You know, he just put it in there because it's in the scripture. But he talked about Moab and Ammon, even though he didn't say who they were. But he never touched on Edom. He just said other 8 nations helped them. See, the topic of Edom has been a hot potato for years, man. And now that the truth is out and about, this is why they're trying to do damage control and trying to bring up other nations that could be Edomites, because they don't want the world to know that they're Edomites. And this is why they're trying to hide from that. It says the Hagarites, verse 6, were a tribe against whom the Transjordan tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh fought at the time of the Jewish conquest of Palestine. Boise. Gabal is probably not the northern city of that name, better known as Byblos, and associated with Tyre, Joshua 13 and 5, 1 Kings 5:18, but a locality south of the Dead Sea, Kidner. The psalmist mentions 10 different nations which had branded themselves together against the Most High's chosen people Israel. 10 against 1 is long odds, but then God was on the side of Israel. Spurgeon Selah, there was a good reason for a phrase when the nation was in such jeopardy, and yet it needs faith to make a pause, for unbelief is always in a hurry. You know, so pretty much he'll speak on certain things, try to paint the picture that this is talking about them Amalekites, them Khazars over there in the land of Israel. But you notice that he's not going into who these nations are today. You know, because one, either they don't know or they don't want to bring it out. Because if you are a Bible scholar, you should know who the Ishmaelites are. That's the easy one. That you know, you could have broke that down. So how come he didn't go into any of those names, especially the Edomites? Because they don't want that term Edom coming out. It says the cry of vengeance, grant victory and deliverance as in the days of the judges. Deal with them as with Midian, as with Sisera, as with Jabin at the brook Kishon, who perished at Endor, who became as refuse on the earth. Make their nobles like Oreb and like Zeeb. Yes, all the princes like Zebah and Zalmunna, who said, let us take for ourselves the pasture of the Most High for a possession. And pretty much this is going back in history. Let these nations perish, just like all of these other nations and these kings, you know, were taken down by Gideon and other, you know, Joshua and other great men back then. In other words, let these nations that are coming against us, these 10 nations that are coming against us, let them be devoured like all of our enemies were. And then he goes on to break down dealing with them as with Midian. God's victory over Midian through Gideon is described in Judges 6, 7, and 8. And pretty much he goes through here and gives the breakdown of these different names and cities that we conquered, you know, and what happened to them. I'm just trying to jump through here and get to the more poignant points. Pasture. Okay, here. Number 2, 13 through 15. Bring them to destruction. So this is the part I want to get to. The first part I wanted to touch on was that, first of all, first point was that he was saying here that this could be applied to today. This prayer of Psalms the 83rd chapter, because the Israelites are still under danger of extermination, which is the true Israelites, but they're trying to push it as being the Amalekites, right? Then the second point of this is he didn't touch on any of these nations or who they were today, especially the Edomites. And the third point is on this destruction that he's going to talk about, but he really doesn't really touch on that either. It says, "O my power, make them like the whirlwind, like the whirling dust, like the chaff before the wind, as the fire burns the woods, and as the flame sets the mountains on fire. So pursue them with your tempest, and frighten them with your storm." Like the chaff before the wind, Asaph prayed that the Most High would take these many enemies determined to destroy Israel and scatter them like chaff before the wind. And the whirling dust, he prayed that they would be consumed like the fire burns the wood. Like the whirling dust, the word rendered whirling dust in Psalms 83:13 is somewhat doubtful. It literally means a rolling thing, but what particular thing or the sort is difficult to determine. Tumbleweed, wheel, is a plant of wild artichoke family, a plant with wheel-shaped stems and thistles. Pursue them with your tempest. To the ancient Hebrew, there was nothing more powerful than the tempest of the storm. The psalmist prayed that the Most High would not only defeat Israel's enemies, but also pursue and frighten them with his great power. And what they don't understand is, here in America, whoever is on the soils of America is going to be burnt up. And that's what the end of this chapter of Psalms, the 83rd chapter, is talking about. You know, Lord's will, like I said, we can get into that. But these guys, they don't know. Like, they'll hit some parts, they'll know certain parts, but other parts they won't touch because they don't know. That's why one guy will say, well, this is difficult to determine, and that's difficult to say, and we can't really say for sure. And then you'll have 20 different scholars saying 20 different things, and maybe one or two of them will agree with each other. You see? But then you have to, because they say it, we have to accept it. The fuck out of here, man. Number 3, 16-18. Bring these enemies to the knowledge of the true power. Fill their face with shame, that they may seek your name, O Lord. Let them be confounded and dismayed forever. Yet let them be put to shame and perish, that they may know that you, whose name alone is the Lord, are the Most High over all the earth. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek your name. Asaph ended his psalm with an unexpected turn. After praying for the destruction of Israel's enemies, he prayed that they would be thoroughly humbled, fill their face with shame, so they would be led to seek Yahweh. It's Yahweh. But pretty much they're going to be destroyed. And what's going to happen is when the Most High destroys these nations, they're going to be forced, the ones that are left around the world are going to be forced to give credence and to give praise to the Most High, Yahweh. Just like it happened during the time of Egypt. The Most High destroyed Pharaoh and all the Egyptian army. And what happened? The ones that were left over of them nations, they trembled when they heard of the fame of the Most High and what he did for us when we came out of the land of Egypt. This is what Asaph is talking about. Because when in the kingdom of heaven, all nations are going to be forced to come to worship before the Most High. It tells you that in Isaiah the 2nd chapter. It says, but there's a deeper desire in the psalmist's heart than the enemy's destruction. He wishes that they would be turned into gods. See, here goes the bullshit Christian plantation Christianity spin. This is not what Asaph was saying. Asaph was saying destroy them. And now when the rest of these nations that are left around the world, they're going to hear of that fame, just like during the time of Egypt, as we spoke about. Turn into the Most High's friend? No, because they are the Most High's enemies. And he wishes for their chastisement as a means to that end. No. All right, so pretty much, you get the gist of what this guy is saying. So let's go to Psalms 83:1. A song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thou silence, O Most High, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. Why? Because these nations are doing their thing, so we're praying the Lord, look, this is what Asaph was saying for us today. Don't keep silence. Open up on these devils. Bring judgment upon them for the things that they're doing to us, to your people. Because if they're doing it to us, they're doing it to you. It says, for lo, thine enemies, see the enemies of the Lord make a tumult. A tumult is a great noise of many people coming together for one purpose. It says that they that hate thee have lifted up the head, and they have lifted up the head. Why? Because these nations are reputed as being nothing, but now today they're uplifted like as if they were, the shit. Like if they were somebody when they really truly are nobodies, trying to be somebodies. It says they have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and they have that. They have done that. You better believe that all these nations, especially the top elite among them, they have taken these crafty counsels against us to see what could they do to destroy us. Why do you think there's? When's the last time you seen a bunch of Moabites or a bunch of Ammonites or a bunch of Edomites or Elamites or Ishmaelites or Hamites or any of them other nations standing picketing for the sufferings that Jacob has gone through in these ghettos and are going through? You know, when was the last time you seen them picketing for that? You're not going to see that. Why? Because they're glad that Jacob's in that position. Because when we read about the parable of Lazarus and the rich man, it says that the dogs lick the wounds, because you have the two major actors, so to speak, of the movie, which is Jacob and Esau, and then you have the fillers, which are the other nations, and they are considered to be the dogs in that story of Lazarus and the rich man. And it says that they lick the swords. Now, in other words, the swords represent what? They represent, you know, our calamities, you know, our poverty, you know, the condition we find ourselves in, which we barely have anything, and they take the very little bit that we do have. For those that are less fortunate, you know, they go to these different stores and these different Moabite places and buy this crap, which is cheap, that's killing them, you know, and then they take that money and take it out of the community. They don't build the community back up, and then after they finish what they do, they clean up and go back to their homes where they came from. They don't live in that neighborhood. So as these have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. What are the hidden ones? The hidden ones means that we are not known to the world. Just like it says in the book of Numbers, the 23rd chapter, they are not reckoned among the nations. So we are hidden to the world. And now that we're making a stand through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Shemal Shai, they have a nerve to get upset, you know, and to ridicule us and say that we're ignorant, and then this is ridiculous, because now we're finally reclaiming back our heritage, and now they have a problem with that. So we are those hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, and they have cut us off from being a nation. This is why you have so much division among all the tribes, because they have cut us off from being a nation. This is why Esau, when he conquered Gad, what did he do? Put him in reservation camps. And what did he do? He re-educated them. When he brought Judah over here, Benjamin and Levi, what did he do? He beat the living shit out of them to what? To make them forget about their heritage. What did he do here with the so-called Latin tribes? He burnt up all the records and did the same thing, retaught everybody the Spanish language and all the bullshit that they push in that plantation Christianity to make us forget about our heritage. So they have cut us off from being a nation. And even among the tribes themselves, the whole tribe is divided. Why? Because this is the work of Satan, the so-called white men, the Edomites. That the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Now, is the name of Israel still in remembrance? Yeah, you still have a place on the map called Israel. You can type in the word Israel in your search engine, and it'll take you to the land of Israel. One of them, those links will take you to the land of Israel. And they put that name upon themselves. That's why they call themselves Israeli. So the name of Israel has not been wiped out of remembrance. But what has been wiped out of remembrance is that name being called upon us, the true Israelites. Because to them we're just Negroes, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, you know, North American Indians, Seminole Indians, Mexican Indians, and that's it. We can't reclaim back our heritage. That's the attitude that they have. So they said, come and let us, so that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consented together with one consent, and they are all confederate and are confederate against thee. And this is why in the United Nations building, you really don't have a seat for any of us. And the individuals that are in there that are representing them so-called Latin American countries are doing the bidding of Esau. A lot of them are Edomites themselves, but they're also doing the bidding of Esau. If they're not Edomites, they're doing the bidding of Esau. All right? It says the tabernacles of Edom. Number one on the chart are the tabernacles or the house of Edom, the so-called white man, the Edomites. Beginning with who? And then it also mentions the Amalekites down here, which is the chief house of Esau. You have Esau, which is the top enemy, but among the top enemy, you have the chief house of them, which are the Amalekites. And when you go to Genesis 36, it tells you about Amalek, which this is the so-called white man, and the Ishmaelites, which are the so-called Arabs of Moab, the so-called Chinese, and the Hagarenes, which are Hamites. It says Gibal. I believe these are Hamites also. I haven't gone over this in a while. We have to go back, but I believe these are Hamites also, and Ammon, which are the so-called Japanese, and Amalek, which is the chief house of Edom, which are them Amalekites, them Khazars. The Philistines, which are so-called Egyptians, and the inhabitants of Tyre, which are Canaanites, like the South Africans. Ashur, which are the Assyrians. Also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot, Selah. So they have hope. All these nations put together, they've come against us in one way, or one form, shape, or another. So Asaph is breaking it down and in a prayer to the Lord. Look, this is what they're doing. This is what they've done. Now please destroy them. It says, do unto them as unto the Midianites. What happened to the Midianites when Gideon chased them out? Remember Gideon in the 300, and they went crazy. The Midianites went crazy because they were running into each other, killing each other. Because of I believe it was a dream or something like that happened. I can't remember the specifics. I would have to go back and read that story again, or the history. But they had a dream or something like that, and when the Gideon and the 300 blew the horn, the sword of Gideon and of the Lord, or the sword of the Lord and of Gideon, they heard that and they got nervous because I believe they saw a vision of that. So they got slayed. As to Sisera, which was working for, I believe that was Halithanes, during the time of the judges with Barak, As to Jabin at the brook of Kishon. So in other words, destroy them as you destroyed our enemies. Put them to death. Which perish at Endor, they became as dung to the earth. Make their nobles like Oreb and like Zeeb. They all their princes as Zeba and Zalmunna. Which these are Midianite kings, princes. Who said, let us take to ourselves the house of the Most High in possession. And this is what these nations have always tried to do. They have always tried to come in and take over our land, and they have done that. Let's go real quick to Luke. They have done that. Luke 21 and 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. This is dealing with the nation of Israel. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So these nations are in that land of Israel, which proves that the people of Israel are not there until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled, meaning until all of the empires of these nations would rule. And it came to an end to where the Lord was coming to destroy them and set up Yahweh kingdom / Israel's kingdom. The real Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. So let's go back. It says, who said, let us take to ourselves the house of the Most High in possession, and not only the land but also the people. And when you go and you research the scriptures, we were in captivity under every single nation under heaven that have their biblical names. Because today you have a lot of different nations that have different names from the Bible, but they all go back to one of three Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, or Japheth. O my power, make them like a wheel, as a stubble before the wind. And what is this talking about? This is talking about the nuclear destruction. Make them as a stubble before the wind. That great wind that is speaking about is the nuclear wind, the nuclear destruction. I believe that's either Jeremiah 51 or Jeremiah 50. Yep, Jeremiah 51:1. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying wind. What do you think that destroying wind is? The nuclear fire, the nuclear wind, nuclear fire that's going to be used to wipe this place out. because this place needs a makeover. It can't be cleaned up by policy, by changing it, by voting, none of that. The Lord has to totally annihilate this place and totally annihilate this place, and that would make it clean, because it will never ever be inhabited ever again. It will serve as a memorial of who the wicked are. As the fire burneth a wood, and as a flame setteth the mountains on fire. So this is talking about the nuclear destruction. This is not talking about send a hurricane and just tear them down, or send a tempest and tear them. No, this is talking about nuclear destruction, which is going to be the final destruction that's going to be on the planet Earth. And then after that, after World War III is fought and everything happens and the destruction comes, then when the men of the Lord are set back up into power, we will be going through the earth and destroying those weapons when the kingdom is established. That's spiritual power. That's one of the very first acts, besides putting these nations in captivity, that's going to go down, is we're going to be grabbing them up, putting them into slavery, and also destroying any weapon that's left. Any tank or plane or whatever is left is going to be destroyed by nuclear fire. Isaiah 9:5. For every battle of the warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. So every war that has ever been fought has been fought this way. With men going out to the battlefield, having on coat of mail or armor, fighting with each other, blood spilling everywhere, a loud noise, a tumult. It wasn't really until the 1900s, like the mid 1900s, that bombs were created and used to start fighting against so-called America's enemies. And that very technology that they got is the very technology that the Lord is going to use to destroy them. And that's why he gave them that power to fulfill prophecy. It says, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. What shall be with burning and fuel of fire? This last battle, which is going to be culminate in nuclear destruction, because the Lord gave them that ability and that power to do that. Isaiah 54:16. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire. The ancient smith will create weapons. Modern day smith, which are the scientists, create modern day weapons, which are what? Which are missiles, because that's how these devils are fighting now. It says, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. What is that instrument for his work? In the ancient time, a sword, a spear, a shield, a helmet, armor. In today's day, modern day, with the scientists, is talking about these missiles that they're using. They have, machine guns and different tanks and all that. But the main thing that they're using is those missiles, because that's what's going to bring the end of this man's system. And I have created the waster to destroy. Who is the waster to destroy? Those missiles, because that's what they were created for. So the end of Psalms 83 is talking about the nuclear destruction of these nations that did not happen back then. So this is something that's happening now. Remember, there were things that King David wrote in the Psalms that pertain to today, that weren't happening back then. It says, so persecute them with thy tempest and make them afraid with thy storm. And that storm and that tempest is talking about the nuclear storm, the nuclear tempest. Another scripture is Malachi, the 4th chapter, where it speaks about the day shall come that shall burn as an oven. Fill their faces with shame, that they may seek thy name, O Lord. Why? Because eventually, when the kingdom is established, they're going to have to seek the Lord. It tells us that in Zechariah, the 14th chapter. They're going to have to bow down. It tells you in Isaiah, the 2nd chapter, Micah, the 4th chapter, how these nations are going to be forced to keep our laws, statutes, and commandments. Because at the end of it all, the next kingdom that's coming is going to be ruled in total righteousness. Let them be confounded and troubled forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish. And they're going to be put to shame and perish. So how in the hell, as this guy is saying, he wants the Lord to have mercy on them. Asaph wants the Lord to have mercy on them, for them to submit to God, who's the most high over the whole earth, and surrender to him. But here we're reading that let them be confounded and troubled forever, yea, let them be put to shame and perish. So if they are to perish, means to be destroyed. And the main one that's going to perish and be destroyed is Esau, the Edomites. Let's see what the word perish means. Maybe it means slap him on the wrist. Akkad. Perish, vanish, go astray, be destroyed. Perish, die, be exterminated. Job, the 20th chapter comes to mind. They will be exterminated. Obadiah, the first chapter, the 18th verse. They will be exterminated. Which shows you that these guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. But because they've paid so much money and they got this prestige, matter of fact, there's a picture of him here in the Blue Letter Bible. Or there was. Let's see. Yeah, there was he's hiding now. He's in hiding. Yeah, there was a picture of him. But that shows you that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. It says, let them, they know certain things, like when you go into the commentary, he'll break down the history and go into the different kings of, Zeeb and all them, and Oreb and Zalmunna and all them different, and the different areas and the history of Sisera and whatever else was taking place in there. But when it comes down to prophecy, when it comes down to things of the mysteries of the scriptures, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Let them be confounded and troubled forever, yea, let them be put to shame and perish, that men may know that thou, whose name alone is Yahweh, art the most high power over all the earth. Right, because the men that are left over will have to bow down to the name of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, because the most high Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai is going to be exalted, just like he was exalted after the his name was really exalted after the destruction and deliverance from the land of Egypt. All right, Psalms 9 and 20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these, meaning by this destruction, plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. So pretty much they're not going to repent, and that's why they're going to have to be beaten into submission. So what the hell is this guy talking about? It says, neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. And this is why the Lord said we're going to rule them with a rod of iron, because they're going to be forced into keeping our laws, statutes, and commandments. See, because they're not going to want to do it, but they're going to be forced to do it. So pretty much, that was Psalms 80, the 83rd chapter commentary. I mean, there's a whole lot more that can be said about that chapter. Could go on for a while with it, but pretty much the point has been made. And if brothers would like to add to it, whatever the case is, they can feel free. I put the link in the description box so brothers could just click on it and go there. So with that, I pray that your brothers have been edified. And to the next time I say, Shalom. Yeah, there was a picture of him, but that shows you that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. It says, let them, they know certain things, like when you go into the commentary, he'll break down the history and go into the different kings of, Zeeb and all them, and Oreb and Zalmunna and all them different, and the different areas and the history of Sisera